It's great to be here today in the house of the Lord. I want to thank you for being here. Congratulations. You beat the summer slump again. For some of you who've been here last week, I said the same thing. So I just want to thank you for being here. God is really moving here at Potential Church, and it's great to be a part of His kingdom and what God's doing here. I'm just honored to be your pastor and to be in this place. God has really answered a lot of prayers for us to be here. He's opened a lot of doors, and He will continue to open doors and answer prayers for you. And today we're kind of talking about that. But before we get started, I do have a confession for you. That's what I was looking for, my friend. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I do have a confession for you. And I just don't want it to go outside these walls. You know, we are streaming online, but it's a little embarrassing. But I watch Big Brother. Okay, I know you all have the same vice, but I really do like it, and I like it for multiple reasons. I don't like it for the smut that goes on, on it sometimes, but I do like it because I love to see people put in a house with no contact from the outside world and see what happens. And they take people from all walks of life and put them together. It's like a ticking time bomb, right? It's like putting 16 sticks of dynamite together beside, a bonfire. I mean, something's going to happen, right? And I love, because a lot of them will go in and they'll say, well, I'm going to play this game with integrity. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to stab people in the back. And then they cut to all the times that they lied, cheated, stabbed people in the back. And I'm like, yep. And there's always the Christian in the bunch. This season there's a lady there that's a pastor, and I think the show is just waiting for her to blow up. It's like they're sitting there waiting to pounce and to highlight some crazy stuff that's going on with her. And I'm watching Big Brother. I see y'all looking, and I'm watching Big Brother, and it seems like to me the theme of Big Brother is fake it till you make it, right? Everybody heard that line before? Fake it till you make it. Well, what if, I started thinking, what if your life was on display, but your prayer life was on display? That's the most personal thing you have with God is your prayer life, your one-on-one communication with Him. What if that was on display like Big Brother? That's something you can't fake. You can't fake it till you make it with your prayer life. And there's either going to be results from your prayer life or there's going to be results because of the lack of your prayer life. So today, as we're continuing in our study of Elijah, one of the things that is amazing about him is how he prayed and how God used his prayers and him in every situation. So let's do a little recap. We're in week 3. So first up, Elijah was one of the last prophets of God, Yahweh in the Old Testament. And Ahab and Jezebel, is that her name? Ahab and Jezebel, yep. They are the worst leaders out of 200 years in the northern kingdom of Israel. The worst out of 200 years. That is like generation after, they're horrible, okay? And they have turned the worship of Yahweh away from Yahweh to the prophets of Baal and Azura. And so his father started it, and Ahab and Jezebel continued it. So now they're worshiping the fire god, and he's supposed to promise crops and all that kind of stuff. Well, God's had enough, and he sends Elijah to approach King Ahab and say, hey, guess what? It's not going to rain here until I say so. Now, rain was almost like their currency, okay? Because if it didn't rain, there was no crops. And y'all just imagine what it would be like after about a week of no groceries in the grocery store around here. That's what it would be like when Elijah's walking up to King Ahab and said, hey, there's a drought coming, and it's not going to rain until I say so. Because you've turned your eyes away from God, and that's the punishment. That's what's going to happen. And he's going to use that to turn your eyes back to God. So he confronts this king. At any moment, he could have been beheaded, so that took a lot of courage, right? And then after that, God took him away into the Kerith Ravine. The Kerith Ravine, which in Hebrew means cut off, away from God's blessings. He separated people he separated him away from the people, because you can imagine they probably weren't very happy with Elijah. When it did stop raining, what's going on? And the king said, talk to Elijah. It's his fault. So he's separated away. God is providing for him through a brook that sprung up in the middle of a drought. And ravens are feeding him twice a day. Ravens. So he is seeing God's blessings happening right in front of him, a miracle. After a time of being in the Kerith ravine, things are getting worse and worse in the northern kingdom. The brook dries up, and God tells Elijah to go into a city. He travels about 100 miles. It's estimated around 100 miles, and finds a widow and a son. And she's actually fixing to prepare her last meal for for her son and herself. And he says, hey, I need some food. And she looks at him like, are you crazy? I barely have enough for us, and that ain't going to work. And he says, don't worry about it. Go fix me some biscuits, and it's going to be there. God's going to provide. She had a little bit of oil, a little bit of flour. Every day she went back, she had enough. Every day for months. So here's another miracle that's right in front of Elijah that's happening right in front of him. And then all of a sudden her son dies. And she's questioning God. She's fearful. And Elijah takes her son to the upper room, lays his dead body on top of him, and prays to God. And this is the first time that we've seen someone come back to life in the Bible. God used Elijah to bring a man back to life, her son. Another miracle. Well, then the exciting part happens. He goes back to King Ahab. Well, he goes back to Mount Carmel, and he summoned King Ahab to come pretty much for a showdown. Yes. It's going to be the prophets of Baal against God. 450 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of Asherah. They come up there, and he says, build an altar, pick out your sacrifice, do whatever you need to do, and I'll do the same. And whoever's God burns the altar with the sacrifice is who wins. It's the ultimate showdown. I mean, it's the ultimate showdown. Everybody comes out because at this point, everybody's desperate, right? They've been in a drought for about 3 years, and they want to know what's going on. Because when, a lot of times when we get to these desperate places, we start questioning what we believe. They were beginning to question what they believed, and they wanted some proof that this Baal was going to provide for him. I mean, after all, he's the fire god. He's the sun god. I mean, they thought they had this battle in the bag because, he's going to rain down some fire and burn up the cow. Okay? But Elijah said, hey, before you do this with mine, I want you to... Now they went on, they worshiped, and they screamed out to God. They cut themselves. They did all this kind of stuff all day. And at about noontime, Elijah said, won't you scream a little louder? I don't think he can hear you. I love it. This guy got cocky and a little smack talk. And he said maybe he's busy. And last week I shared with you that the word busy in Hebrew is translated maybe he's in the bathroom. How funny is that? He said maybe he's busy, vacation or something. I don't know. So anyway, they're doing all this stuff and nothing ever happens. And before it's Elijah's turn, he says, dig a trench all the way. He's setting it up, man. It's so beautiful. He says, dig a trench all the way around the altar. And do me a favor. Pour 12 these big, massive water jars on top of everything. Let's saturate it too. He's leaving no doubt that his God is the ultimate authority, that his God is the God of their little false gods, and that Yahweh is the one that's going to bring provisions for his people, not the false gods. And we learned last week that false gods provide, they promise the things that only the true God can provide, whatever it is in your life. So, of course, God came down, he incinerated everything, and he sent fire down, and even said it burned the rocks up. That's got to be really hot to burn rocks up. He burned it all. And of course, Elijah left no room for doubt. All the prophets of Baal and Asherah taken and killed on the spot. This was a no-holds-barred battle to death kind of thing. Because I guarantee you, if it had went the other way, guess what happened to Elijah? Yeah, it wouldn't have been pretty. So now they're about 3.5 years into a drought, and that's kind of caught you up to where we are today. Elijah told Ahab, he said, go, drink, and eat because the rain is coming. And so as we pick up today, just let me give you a little background of how Elijah is accepted and loved throughout all of Scripture. We're going to be between 1 Kings today, and we'll be jumping between that and the book of James. James was Jesus' brother, okay? Here's what he said about Elijah. Elijah was a human being, even as we are. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3.5 years. Again he prayed, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth produced his crops. Years and years after Elijah's life is over, you see the remnants of God's miracle being worked through him, even James, the brother of Jesus. But one of the big things that Elijah did, he always went to God boldly. And that's how we must remember when we go to God in our prayer life, that we must come boldly before God. Do you know why? Because we're God's child. We're the apple of his eye. We're everything that he loves, and he has created this whole world for us, so we can go to him boldly. And he approaches that throne boldly because not only does he know that God has provided for him, but he's seen miracles. And I promise you, if you look into your life, you can see where God has worked some miracles in your life. You can see where he's provided for you. In fact, everyone sitting in this room is in the top echelon of financial security in the world. So he's already provided for you. You've got a roof over your head. You've got food. You've got a lot of things that are being provided for you. So as we pick up after the showdown between God and Baal, we'll look at 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 42. So Ahab went off to eat and drink, but Elijah climbed to the top of Mount Carmel, bent down to the ground, and put his face between his knees. Go and look toward the sea, he told his servant. And he went up and looked. There is nothing there, he said. 7 times Elijah said, go back. The 7th time the servant reported, a cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea. So Elijah said, go tell Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down off the mountain before the rain stops you. There's 4 characteristics in Elijah's prayer life that we need to model so that we can see effective prayer and God work through us. And the first thing is that effective prayers are humble prayers. What do we see Elijah do? We saw Elijah in 1 Kings 18:42. He bent down to the ground and put his hands between his knees. Elijah might approach God with confidence, but he is before him with humility and understanding that he is the creator. We may always approach God with confidence, but never forget who he truly is. Elijah's obedience grows out of his humility and understanding of the power of God. James goes on to say in chapter 4, verse 6, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up. You see, obedience and humility, they fuel each other. If you're having a problem with obedience, if God's asked you to do something and you've had a problem with obedience, you need to really sit down and think about who you are in comparison to who really God is. Because when you start doing that, you will become humble very quick because you will realize quickly that you don't even exist and the things in your life are not even provided for you unless it's by God himself. So as soon as you sit down and you realize who you are with God and you humble yourself, obedience is easily followed because that's the kind of person you want to follow, is somebody that provides for you, gives you blessings, produces miracles in front of you, and answers your prayers. Now, it also goes the other way. If you're having a problem being humble, go out and serve people. Do what God's called you to do. Because I promise you this, he will not call you to do something that only you can do. It will have to be by his power alone. When we started this church, there's no way that I could do it alone. There's no way. God sent amazing people to make sure all this happens. But it's a humbling experience. When you're obedient to God, you will quickly be a humble person because you will realize how much you can't do without him. So obedience fuels humility. Humility fuels obedience. The next thing that you need to know to have an effective prayer life is you have to have specific prayers. Specific prayers. Now, I don't know about you guys, but have you heard the prayers? Oh, God, be with us. Lord, thank you for everything. I've done it. I'm not coming down on you. I've done them. God, just hold our hand. Really? I mean, I think God's up there going, what do you want me to do? Like, you want me to, like, come down there and actually hold your hand? I mean, I know God knows that he knows our heart, but really, sometimes we just need to be specific. I mean, if you walk into Chick-fil-A and you just say, I want chicken, now I know that's all they serve, but if you just say, just give me some chicken, it's going to blow their mind. And I think Chick-fil-A is about the closest thing to God we have here on this earth. So I'm just saying, sometimes you just need to be a little bit more specific, not only for God, but for you. Because how do you know that your prayers are answered? How do you know that a miracle's happened unless you've been specific? Right? Well, in verse 43, here's what happened. Elijah told his servant, go and look toward the sea, he told the servant. And he went up and looked. There is nothing there, he said. Now, I want you to just think of what the servant, his reaction probably was. It's a drought for 3.5 years. You want me to go, what? You want me to go look for a cloud, a rain cloud, up there and toward the sea? Now, how many of you have been to the ocean, right? A lot of people here. Does rain ever come from the ocean in? No, it goes out, and it's kind of blown out that way. Usually most rain comes, it comes from, condensation that's brought up by lakes and heat and all that kind of stuff, and it goes toward the ocean, and you don't really see big storms coming in from the ocean. Now, I know there's big storms on the ocean, but you don't really see them coming in, at least in my experience, right up from Daytona Beach, I've never seen it. So maybe at Myrtle it's different, I don't know. But I'm sitting there going, we're in a 3.5 year drought, and he sent me up to the top of the mountain to look for a storm cloud. Is he crazy? Now, granted, he did it because he just saw, this huge altar incinerated by fire, and Elijah's God was the one that did it. And so Ahab's up there now, and anyway, so effective prayers. James also said, you do not have because you do not ask God. Many times we do not have the specific things in our life that we need, not that we want, but that we need, because we simply don't ask God. A lot of times we judge God and we question him and his existence, and we haven't even asked him specifically for what we need. We'll sit there and say, God, I can't believe I'm going through this. Why does good things happen to bad people, but yet we haven't simply used the communication tool that's been given to us, the pipeline from earth to heaven, in prayer, and specifically ask God for things in our life that we feel will glorify him, enrich our lives, and help us spread the gospel. Not a new go-kart. Not a new car. Okay? I drive a beat-up 95 Caprice. Okay? I'm not praying for God to give me a Lexus. All right? We got to pray and ask God for the things that are true to his heart, because we need to be obedient to him, and our life should be to glorify him. The next thing that you need to know is that effective prayers are persistent prayers. So he told the servant in verse 43, go and look toward the sea, his servant said. And he went up and looked, there's nothing there. He said to him, 7 times, Elijah said, go back. Can you imagine the servant at this point, like after the 5th time? Really? You want me to go back again? I've been up there 5 times. There's nothing there. You crazy old man. Quit sending me to the top of the mountain. Do you know how steep it is? I have sandals on. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I would be a little, discouraged, a little frustrated. Why do you have me keep going and look? So I'm a very persistent person. One of the things that it's a huge personality trait for me, and usually if I hear a no, unless I know it's an absolute no and there's no other way around, I'm going to try to find a different avenue. It's crazy what that can do for you. I just have this bulldog personality that I'm just very, very persistent. We were at the Cheesecake Factory, and it's going to have to do something with food. I was at the Cheesecake Factory, and they had this cheesecake, listed out front on a nice little poster, and it was an Oreo cheesecake. And we were walking in, and Allison said, that's what I want for dessert. Before we even sat down and eat, that's what I want, right? So we ate, and you have to pick between 400 things on their menu. And then it was time for dessert. And I said, I want that cheesecake, that Oreo cheesecake that is outside on the market. We don't have any more of that, sir. Do what? We're discontinuing that. So you have it on your menu, and I was just giving the guy a hard time. You have it on your menu, and you have a poster out front, but you don't have any. Yeah, because we're discontinuing. Why don't you take the poster down? Well, I don't know. We're just not. So, okay. But we are introducing a new Oreo cheese. Oh, really? You are? Well, do you have any of that back there? Well, yeah, but we haven't started serving that. We start that tomorrow. He should have never told me that. I knew it was in the house, and I knew there was the Oreo cheesecake back there with our name on it, okay? So I'm giving the waiter a hard time. I was like, so you're telling me that you're going to advertise something you don't have and not give me something that you do have. But we can't cut that and bring it out because then everybody will want it. Like other people see it, and we're not serving that anymore. I said, well, just tell them it's off the menu. Like you told me. What you don't understand, sir. I said, listen, you've already told me there's Oreo cheesecake back there. I want a slice of the Oreo cheesecake. And I can stay here all night, buddy. So I said, let me talk to your manager. The manager comes, I'm going to tell you, this is the greatest server I've ever seen in my life. He is fantastic, but he's made a huge mistake. He's told me y'all have a secret cheesecake in the back. And I want it. And I ain't leaving until I get it. So, I sweet talk him a little bit, and they go away and say, I'm sorry, ain't nothing I can do. I said, I know there's something you can do. He said, all right, listen, I'm going to go cut that cheesecake. You ever seen the scene in Tommy Boy? That was me right there, okay. So I'm going to cut that cheesecake, and I'm going to put it in a box for you. But you got to promise me that you will not open that box until you get out of this restaurant. Don't even open it till you get in your car. Don't even open it till you get to the hotel room. Because if anybody sees it, I'll get in trouble. I promise. Sure enough, he brought the cheesecake out. Allison's like, I want to look at it. No, don't look at it. What if it's not Oreo? It don't matter. Right now, we got the Oreo cheesecake. We get back to the hotel room. If it's bad, then that's a whole different deal. But right now, we won. We won. Persistency wins. But the only way you can sometimes get what you want, or I thought I really needed that cheesecake, but I really didn't. But sometimes you just need to be persistent. Just keep at it. I think God, he answers prayers 3 ways: yes, no, and wait. And I think a lot of times he uses wait to see how bad we really need something. You ever told one of your kids wait? That's like 30 seconds. They're asking again, right? Sometimes we need to go to God with that childlike faith and just say, God, this is what I really need. It's what I really need. It's what I really need. And if he sees that it's truly fit for you to have, and he wants to bless your life, but he also wants his kingdom to be glorified, and he can look through our sinful desires, and he can see the desires of our heart, and he can see the outcome. And I think persistency either changes our heart because we give up, because we realize we really don't need it, or it answers the question and by God saying yes or no. All right? So sometimes persistency answers the questions. James chapter 5, verse 16 says, the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. What have you given up on over the last year? Is there something that you seriously, I'm just asking you to do a self-evaluation of your prayer life. Okay, many times we take advantage of our prayer life. We take advantage of this open communication that was provided for us at the death on the cross by Jesus Christ. We take advantage of this open communication line, right? And we don't even pray to God, the number one person that provides everything for us. We try to run our own life. We try to solve our own problems, and we don't even communicate with God. And we wonder why things don't work out sometimes, right? We wonder why things are crazy in our life, and there's all the drama and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying everything will be perfect. I'm just saying your perspective and your attitude will change, and God will intervene when you're persistent. The next thing you need to know is to have expectant prayers. The 7th time the servant reported, a cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea. So Elijah said, go tell Ahab to hitch up your chariot and go down before the rain stops you. A small cloud the size of a man's hand, and Elijah goes bananas. It's about to happen. Now, I do this, okay? I blow things out of proportion sometimes, okay? But that's what Elijah did because Elijah had faith in God. He knew that a miracle was about to happen. This small little cloud in the distance, the size of a man's hand, and Elijah goes bananas. Ahab, you better get on your chariot and get out of here because it's about to be a monsoon. And it was a little bitty cloud. How many little bitty clouds in your life have you seen and ignored and they just went away because of a lack of faith? God wanted to do something. God was showing up, but we just ignored it. We just walked away. We just doubted it. Instead of reacting out of obedience and celebration and preparation, knowing that God's about to show up. We're preparing right now for the fall. We know that the fall is going to be a growth time for us. We know that God is going to send people into this church, lost people, people that need Jesus, hurting people. He's going to send people that love Jesus. He's going to send all kind of people, and we're preparing now for the fall. He's given us a little cloud. And if we ignore that little cloud, if we ignore the little things in our life that God's doing, I believe that his attention is just taken off of it because he realizes it's not important to us and our faith. We're not ready to receive it yet. We're not ready to receive it. So I'm sure Ahab was sitting up there going, well, I'll tell you what, Elijah, when I feel a little rain on my bald head, I might start moving. You know what I mean? Because it's been 3.5 years, dude. I mean, I know you burned up a cow and all, but, I mean, I want to see some rain before I hitch up my chariot and get out of here, okay? I want to see something happen. Well, guess what? A lot of people thought Elijah was a fool, and the question is, would we be a fool for God? I guarantee you when the servant told him there was a little bitty cloud and he goes bananas, Ahab and everybody else there and all the servants probably thought, man, that guy's nuts. He's getting excited over a little bitty cloud. What is it in your life that you can get excited about that God's doing? Don't overlook the little things. The little things that you can celebrate may lead to something huge. Verse 45, meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds. Black. Y'all seen one of those before. I mean, dark. The wind rose. A heavy rain came on, and Ahab rode off to Jezreel. The power of the Lord came upon Elijah. Can you picture Ahab on his chariot running from the storm? Like, oh my gosh, go! I can see him looking over his shoulder like, he was right. I mean, they hadn't seen anything in 3.5 years. Do you realize just what a little bit of rain is going to do? It's going to flood the place. The ground is as hard as bricks, and there is a monsoon coming. There's going to be mud as thick as this stage because there's been no crops. Nothing. It's been dead for 3.5 years. People have died. And Ahab is running. He's like, yeah. He's excited, but he's scared at the same time. He's like one of those storm chasers outside of a tornado, you know. Like, oh, I love it. Oh, no, I'm scared. You know. So God wants to work miracles in your life. He wants others to see that amazing work so that they can see what God can do through people. But many times we just ignore the little cloud. We ignore the little things that God's doing, and we're not ready to receive the big things. Elijah's faith and his prayer, he knew something was going to happen. He sent somebody up there 7 times. He didn't give up. He was humble. Evaluate your prayer life today, and I guarantee you it'll answer the question, where's God working in your life, and what miracle does God want to do through you so that others see him? That's why we're here. We're not here to get a promotion. We're not here to make tons of money. We're not here to buy fancy houses and clothes and cars and all that kind of stuff. We're not here to keep up with the Joneses. We're here to make a difference in the world. We're here to spread the gospel. We're here to see people come to know Jesus so that we can have a bigger party in heaven when we get there. All this other stuff is just what the world tells us we need. Strip away all that in your life and celebrate what God's already given you. Go humbly before him. Be specific in your prayers. Be expectant and be persistent. He is the one person that can change everything in your life if your heart's right. and it's for his glory. Prayers work. I guarantee you Ahab knew that prayers worked, right? God wants to do supernatural things among his people, among you. But our faith determines how much we're ready to receive it and how much we're ready to explode and just be celebrating and excitement for what God's doing. Here's what the disciple Mark said in chapter 11, verse 24. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. What is it that you need to ask God for? Maybe it's you stopped praying for someone and you need to start again. You gave up. Maybe you're struggling in your marriage. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's a situation with a relationship at work or at home. There's lots of things that's going on. And many times we try to just solve them ourselves instead of just asking God to guide us. Maybe you've never truly given your life to God. Maybe you played the religious game, the Bible Belt game, to where you go to church, get your gold star, get your warm fuzzy, get your check mark, whatever you want to call it, right? And you just attend. You just attend church. You've attended church your whole life, but it has never really been real inside here. Because when you truly submit your life and you become obedient to God and you give him everything, things start to change. Your perspective changes. Your attitude changes. Your life starts changing because you're not living for yourself anymore. You're living for God. You're living for his glory. Elijah was a normal man just like you and I. And God did amazing things through him. He went from just being a messenger to a man that saw miracles happen right in front of his face. God can do that with you too. But you have to submit to his authority. You have to give your life to him. And you have to understand that he is the God, the creator, and the ruler of this world. And he created you, and he wants to hear you. See, God cares about your prayers because God cares about you. Your prayers are important. Let's bow our heads. Dear God, you've worked in so many of our lives, Lord, and you've answered so many prayers. God, I just pray that we come to you humbly. We come to you with expectant hearts. We're persistent, Lord, and we ask specifically that you move in our life in certain ways, God. We as a church ask specifically, that you continue to grow us, that you continue to see people's lives change. God, that we're here for you and your glory. Today, if you've never given your heart to the Lord, if you've never sacrificed your life and said, you know what, I'm giving it all to God, I can't handle it anymore, I can't control my life, I thought I could, and it just keeps messing up, I don't have any hope, you have this hollow feeling inside, you filled it with everything the world has offered you to fill it with, and you still feel incomplete. Today is your day to make that change. Please don't leave here the same as you came in. Please leave here knowing that you have accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and your life is about to change, and your life is different, knowing that you have an eternity with God's people and with God and in heaven, and you have a life that's wanting to be fully blessed, and a life that's going to reach its full potential, and a life that's going to help others see Jesus. If you've never done that today and you've never totally submitted your life to Christ today, I just want to ask you to just raise your hand so we can celebrate with you. Nobody's looking around, but it's a way for me to make eye contact with you and know that God is moving in your life and that you are ready to turn your life over to God, and we'll walk down that path together. If you've already done that, then today is a reality check for you. Today is an opportunity for you to get back on track with your prayer life. You can read the Bible front to back. You can be at church every single Sunday. You can serve in every possible role. You can give tons of time, talent, and treasure to God's kingdom. But if you're not praying to God, you're not communicating. It's a relationship. And if you don't communicate in a relationship, you can't expect it to grow. Today is your opportunity. We're going to have just a few minutes of just the band playing. I want you to reconnect with God, and then I'll close us out.